The new podcast, In the Shadow of Princeton, starts as the matriarch of a prominent Princeton family is found stabbed to death in her locked basement. Investigators look from a serial attacker to her family to Princeton University students. One hot-blooded investigator sees a conspiracy. Is he way off base, or does privilege let you get away with murder? In the Shadow of Princeton is available wherever you get podcasts, or you can binge it ad-free by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Wednesday, October 16th, 2024. Born on this date in 1948, Pro Bowl wide receiver and tight end Rich Castor of Mobile. Now, he just passed away early this year after suffering from Parkinson's, according to the New York Jets. It's also National Dictionary Day. Now, some of y'all may remember printed hard copy dictionaries. I kept mine on my desk in a stack with a phone book, an AP style book, and my tricorn hat. This may sound familiar if you have an ex-spouse, but today we're going to spend some time in court. We have a case with redlining allegations and another regarding voter rolls. Also, in today's second segment, reporter Sarah White's Coda Check will give us some background on a case that she followed all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court in Washington last week. I'm Mike Morgan, and we're down in Alabama. Fairway Independent Mortgage Corporation has agreed to pay millions to settle a case that an accuser with the Justice Department called modern-day redlining, reports AL.com's William Thornton. Fairway is based in Wisconsin and operates in Birmingham under the name Mortgage Bank, BANC. The Justice Department and Consumer Financial Protection Bureau claimed that Fairway discouraged residents of black neighborhoods from applying for mortgage loans. Now, that's costing Fairway nearly $10 million. $7 million for a loan subsidy program in Birmingham's majority black neighborhoods, $1 million for programs to support that fund, and $1.9 million to pay a civil money penalty. The Justice Department claimed that Fairway marketed toward majority white neighborhoods and didn't train loan officers to do a better job serving heavily black neighborhoods. From 2018 to 2022, only 3.7% of loan applications held by Fairway were for majority black areas, while other lenders averaged higher than 12%. A federal judge has told Alabama Secretary of State Wes Allen to hit the brakes on a voter purge until after the November 5th election, reports AL.com's Joseph D. Bryant. The program flags registered voters who are believed to have illegally registered. The state then changes their status from active to inactive. The program sent notices to 3,251 people to let them know that they were now inactive, and more than 2,000 of those people have since been found to be legal voters. Civil rights and advocacy groups joined the U.S. Department of Justice in filing a lawsuit against Allen in the state of Alabama, claiming the program was flagging and intimidating legal voters. The DOJ also argued that removing registered voters from the rolls this close to an election violates the National Voter Registration Act of 1993. Judge Anna M. Manasco, a Trump appointee, agreed. It doesn't seem like a big stretch to associate country music with a moon pie-themed event, but it's been a while since a country artist has headlined the annual Moon Pie over Mobile New Year's Eve get-together. Now, however, this year's performer is a legend. AL.com's Lawrence Specker reports that Clint Black has taken the job. Black, of course, is the 90s hit maker who brought us Killin' Time, A Better Man, and many other number ones. The Kids Zone will also be back in Mardi Gras Park, and there will be second line parades, a carving of the world's largest edible moon pie, and, of course, the moon pie drop at midnight. Let's take a quick break to pay for this free podcast. When we come back, reporter Sarah White's Coda Check will join us. Now, she was at the U.S. Supreme Court last week for arguments in a case involving Alabama's bogged down and backed up unemployment system. There's a link in show notes to her story. Meantime, after the break, we'll get you caught up on it. Y'all stay with us.
With Ring cameras and doorbells, it's easy to keep every fright in sight. See who's there. Keep your scaredy cats company.
Oh, it's okay, sweetie. I'll be home soon.
And protect your crypt from the real monsters.
Oh, come on. The sign says take one.
Find dead simple ways to stay connected right now at ring.com.
This is an ad for BetterHelp. Welcome to the world. Please read your personal owner's manual thoroughly. In it, you'll find simple instructions for how to interact with your fellow human beings and how to find happiness and peace of mind. Thank you, and have a nice life.
Unfortunately, life doesn't come with an owner's manual. That's why there's BetterHelp Online Therapy. Connect with a credentialed therapist by phone, video, or online chat. Visit BetterHelp.com to learn more. That's BetterHelp.com.
Thanks for staying with us, everybody. Now, back during the pandemic, among so many things that people were having to deal with, we saw that Alabama's unemployment process was not crisis ready. Like everything else, the state became shorthanded at a time when unemployment was probably needed the most for people's financial health, as well as the mounting macroeconomic dangers. And Alabama's unemployment system became terribly backlogged. So much so that Governor Kay Ivey in 2022 called it outrageous. Today, we welcome to the show AL.com Sarah Whites-Kodachek. Thanks for being here, Sarah.
Thanks for having me, Ike.
Sure. Also, thanks for all the reporting you do that makes it onto this podcast, even when you're not here. For folks who haven't followed every step of Alabama's unemployment woes, can you explain how the problems with our unemployment system ended up all the way in the United States Supreme Court?
Sure. So when the pandemic hit, the state's unemployment department was already short-staffed. The state had done some budget cuts a few years earlier and let go of a lot of people. And then on top of that, their computer system was fairly dysfunctional. They were trying to revamp their whole data system, and they had just started working on that. So they weren't really in a good position to handle the huge volume of people that came their way when, as you know, everyone remembers, lots of people left work. I think the national figure was like, at one point, it was like a quarter of Americans went on unemployment at some point. And then the federal government started offering $600 a week. So a lot of people were needing unemployment. And listeners and will probably remember, if they had to try to call in, it was impossible to get through the phone lines. I've talked to a lot of people I know who never were able to get their applications even addressed. So that was the immediate problem. I think that the department had like over 1 million COVID-related unemployment applications. So yeah, that probably doesn't surprise anyone too much that it was difficult, because it was difficult everywhere. Alabama kind of stands out pretty significantly on the national level, however, because a lot of other states kind of turned the corner and got on top of those difficulties within varying time frames. But Alabama's has really just stayed mired in this dysfunction, and the state is now some federal data shows the average appeal wait time is over 700 days. So that can be like multiple years of awaiting. So there were all sorts of problems that happened, people not being able to get through. And then some people, once the state started processing those applications and reviewing them, started flagging people as having been wrongly approved, those who actually were approved for unemployment. And then for some of those people, started demanding tens of thousands of dollars back. They'd get these letters in the mail. saying you all this money back that you got for unemployment. This was by 2021, 2022. They're still sending these out, actually. And that's when we started writing about this issue. And that's kind of around the time that this lawsuit first started going through the state courts.
Yeah, it took them forever to get the unemployment out to people, and then they apparently did it poorly.
Yeah, so the state, the courts, like basically what happened with the lawsuit that's now at the Supreme Court, it got all the way up to the Alabama Supreme Court. And the lawsuit was basically a group of people, 21 people who had all sorts of issues with getting unemployment, including one guy who was mentioned by several Supreme Court justices in the oral arguments last week. He was actually on a ventilator in the hospital and was missed his appeal date because he was on a ventilator. And then when he got off, obviously he had COVID. He tried to reach out to the department and ask for another date, and they said, no, sorry, like too late, you missed it. So that was just an example of kind of some of the unreasonable parameters that were going on.
Yeah.
But so the Alabama Supreme Court, these people sued and said, we have a right to this benefit. It's actually a civil right. And so we want the courts to make the department deal with these issues. And it went all the way to the state Supreme Court, and the state Supreme Court said, you guys have to go through the appeals process before you can actually file a lawsuit. So the appeals process was, kind of the big problem that they're suing about. The appeals were taking 2 years or more. And that's kind of the issue that went up to the high court, the U.S. Supreme Court. Like, can the state say that to people? You have to go through the department that you're suing.
Right. And when you say appeals, just to be clear, this is appeals to the Labor Department in the state about unemployment, not legal appeals.
Yeah. That was just a lot of wonky stuff to explain. But yeah, the appeals they reject you. Mm-hmm. You get a chance to appeal. But then a lot of those appeals weren't ever heard or weren't heard for many months or years.
Okay. So the question before the Supreme Court, and this sounded crazy to me, was they're trying to answer whether those who've claimed unemployment should have to wait until the unemployment process is finished before they can sue over the unemployment process taking too long. Does that kind of sum it up?
Yeah, that's why at one point, like, several people used the word Kafkaesque in the Supreme Court room, including Justice Sotomayor. And I think the attorney referred to it as a catch-22. Because obviously unemployment is supposed to be a short-term, immediate help. And the question is, the state law requires people to go through the agency process before they can sue the agency. Mm-hmm. And I'll try to keep the legal arguments fairly simple, because it can get to be a lot. But basically, there's a federal civil right that people have the right to sue the government when their rights have been violated. And so the Supreme Court was sort of weighing, does that civil right overcome Alabama's decision here that you have to go back to the department that you're having the problem with?
Okay. So this is what the Supreme Court's going to be pondering until they release their findings the next time they do that.
Yeah, so they'll probably make a decision in, maybe the spring or summer. So it'll be a while before that gets resolved.
Okay. Well, sort of what's the next step? If say the Supreme Court's majority sides with these plaintiffs and says you can go ahead with your suit. I may have just kind of answered my question, but what will we see then? Yeah, so the Supreme Court is just deciding whether
the state can block the lawsuit. So if they didn't actually consider the lawsuit itself. So if they say the state has to let them sue, then we'll go back to the state courts where they'll be hearing the claims against the department and the Secretary of Labor.
Okay. And then if otherwise the folks are just back to waiting on the system.
Yeah, we also in looking at some of that data, that federal data, one way we know that there's still some issues that are going on right now is that Alabama's rejecting the greatest number of people who are applying now.
Mhm.
So they're the people who are waiting on the issues from before. They're the people who've been asked to repay or are still being asked to repay. And then there's the problem if you get laid off now, that it can be hard to get through, even though, we're not in COVID anymore.
I see. So they're probably scrutinizing applications because of the backlog, and also to not have to ask for money back.
Yeah, well, like there was people probably heard about the fraud, like on the national level. There was an issue with fraud in the unemployment claims. So the department is prioritizing, it seems, vetting the applications, but because their system had so many glitches, like if the littlest thing goes wrong or the employer doesn't confirm this or that, or the application's not filled out properly, then somebody will get flagged as, they didn't deserve this benefit, and then they're told to pay it back. And then there's not it's confusing to people at that point, like what can they do if they're trying to appeal, but they can't get anyone on the phone or they can't get an appeal date? It gets people pretty stressed out when they have a $10,000 bill that they were not expecting.
Right. The whole thing's crazy because, unemployment is supposed to be a temporary thing. And if you have to wait 700 days or whatever, I mean, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us about this.
Yeah. Thanks, Ag.
And come back and update us. Come back and update us on it. Maybe after the Supreme Court comes back with a decision, we'll figure out where to go from here. Well, thanks everybody out there for listening to us. We are going to be back here again tomorrow. Until then, y'all come see what we're doing on the internet at al.com.